Well, hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Ari, and obviously I dyed my hair. I don't know if you noticed, but it's been dyed. Today we are going over my March wrap-up, and I'm gonna try to make this as quick as possible because while I'm sitting here recording this needs to go live. I got my hair did yesterday, was waiting to start all of the April videos until I got my hair did so there's not any like inconsistency in the videos, but yeah. I'm recording like 6 videos today, so I hope you like my Dolly Parton shirt because you're gonna see it a lot this month. Anyway, let's jump right in to the March wrap-up. In March, I read 20 books, so not amazing, but not bad either. I read 6,429 pages, which roughed out to 207 pages per day, or 321 pages per book. Let's jump right into genre. Now, usually fantasy is first, but this month sci-fi was first. I read 6 sci-fi books. Fantasy came in second at 4, and then 4 graphic novels, 2 nonfiction, 1 fiction, 1 horror, 1 short story collection, and 1 thriller. The gender of the authors that I read this month, 10 of them were men, which is a little unusual. 9 female and 1 was like multiple people of multiple genders. The noise in the back is the dog destroying his toy basket. So please ignore. The source, where I sourced the books, I was obviously doing a read yourself challenge this month, so 13 of the 20 books I read were from my physically owned bookshelves. 3 of them were ARCs, 2 of them were from the library, 1 was from a book box, and 1 was new, something I purchased this month. Demographic, 18 of the 20 books that I read were for an adult audience, and the other 2 were for YA. Format, 11 of them were physical, 6 of them were ebooks, and 3 audiobooks off my backlist this month. As far as have I read the author before or not, it was split 50-50 down the center, and 10 of them were new to me authors, and 10 of them were authors I have read from before. As for star rating, as for star rating, I only gave 1 book 5 stars. I've been having a really rough time this year with 5 stars, but the majority of my reads were 4 stars, and so I have 12 4-star books, which was really good. So I'm gonna say this was a really, really good reading month. 6 3 stars, 1 2 star, 0 1 stars, and then 2 books I DNF'd. Now, I did a lot of vlogs this month, so most of the books that I'm actually going to talk about, I'm just going to redirect you to the blog and say like, oh, I like this or I didn't like this. So I'm just going to go through the books in order, and then I will mention the video where you can find more information about that book, which I will also link that video down in the description box below. Good, got it, great. Let's start out with the first book I read this month, which was A History of What Comes Next. Now, I read this book because I had an arc of the second book in the series, which I will talk about later, but this is a book by Sylvain Neuvel. It follows a mother and daughter through the space race, and they're kind of like a background influence. They seem to be immortal aliens from another planet, except for their immortality is done really weirdly, where the mother has a daughter and the daughter is a 100% exact copy of her. So the genetics are immortal, but the memories are not. And they have a mission to get them to the stars, which they don't really understand because their history has been lost over the years because they've been hunted by the Hunters, which is another of their immortal race, but a male. I highly recommend this series. It's like one of those lovely written things that even though there's drama in it, it just puts you into this like world of calm and beauty, which I very, very much enjoy. So I definitely recommend this if you like sci-fi, especially if you were interested in the space race between the US and Russia in the 1960s, where where each country is trying to be the first to get a man to the moon. The second book that I read was The Kaiju Preservation Society. This was my 5-star for the month. It's a book about Godzilla creatures. And I am going to direct you to my ARC video for more info on this. Number 3, I read Lore Olympus. Lore Olympus is a graphic novel based off of Hades and Persephone's story, like Roman mythology, but it's modernized and it's really, really pretty, like monochromatic colors, very pretty, modern setting, so it's like a club-going Persephone and things like that. I thought this was really good, but I don't know that I loved it as much as a lot of other people do, but I still think this is good. I think it is definitely worth picking up if you can pick it up. This didn't really go with anything this month. I just borrowed it from the library and it just happened to come in at the beginning of the month. So I was like, oh shit, this has got a long hold list. I should read it really quick because it's a comic. Next up, I read Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This was a 4-star continuation in the Dark Artifices series. I talk more about this in my Shelf 1 video. Also on Shelf 1 was Paper Girls Volume 4. This is another graphic novel series. It has 6 volumes. I'm on volume 4. I have 2 left to go. I like this a lot. It's very cool, very sci-fi, and by the same author as Saga, though Saga is way better than Paper Girls. Again, apologies about the dog doing dog things. Again, another Shelf 1 book. I read To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers is one of my favorite authors. Highly recommend pretty much all of her writing. If you want to hear more about this book specifically, again, check out that video. Then I finally read the second book in Sylvain Neuvel's series, Until the Last of Me, which follows the daughter from the first book, but she's the mother now, and her daughter, their Generation 100. And the space science in the background going on is Voyager's 2 journey, but you could see more about this one in my ARCs vlog, because this was an ARC that I had and read. From there, I read Ball of Fire, which is a autobiography of Lucille Ball. For the most part, I really enjoyed this, but it did have a little bit of problematic content, which you can see more about this book on my Shelf 2 video. But Lucille Ball was a cool woman. I highly recommend picking up a biography of her, maybe not necessarily this one. From there, I picked up No Longer Human by Junji Ito. This was too depressing for my personal taste, and it wasn't like the body horror really that I expect from Junji Ito. The story was a little bit different. You can check more about this in what all of the trigger warnings and what I personally didn't like about it in the Shelf 2 video. And another book from Shelf 2, this is Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. This is a story of a poor family living through Hurricane Katrina. Supposedly, the hurricane doesn't hit until the very, very, very end of the book, so it's really like just lead up information on a poor family. There's a lot of animal abuse in here, so I recommend definitely checking out trigger warnings if you are very, very uninterested in animal abuse. This one also in the Shelf 2 video if you would like to hear me talk about that a little bit more. So about this time in the month, it was the Aurelium Gear Up Challenge, which was a week-long readathon where you geared up for Aurelium, which is the readathon for this entire month. My prompt for my legacy was I needed to read the first book in a series, and so for that I picked up Monstrous Volume 1 by Marjorie Liu. This is kind of a sci-fi graphic novel about a world that has been torn apart by war, and you have human-like creatures, and then you have like these animal human hybrid-like creatures, and then you have cats, like talking cats. And the humans and the animal god human hybrids have been at war, and the generation that we're following are people who have just barely survived the war, and they're dealing with the trauma badly. And our main character here is trying to seek revenge of some sort, but I don't want to spoil it. But I highly recommend this. The artwork is beautiful, and the story is very, very interesting, especially if you like sci-fi. From there, my final Shelf 2 book was Straight by Chuck Tingle. Chuck Tingle is fantastic. He usually writes erotica, but if you don't like to read erotica but you still want the wholesomeness and the humor and the greatness that is Chuck Tingle, I recommend picking up this, because this is a horror story. It's hilarious, it's funny, don't take it seriously, and if you want to see more, again, Shelf 2 video. Then I read another arc called Tell Me an Ending by Jo Harkin. This one, I'm going to tell you straight up, is not particularly memorable to me right now, but I did talk about it at length in my arc video, so I will direct you there. Finally, we're on Shelf 3, and the only book I read off of Shelf 3 in full was Anyone by Charles Soule or Soleil. I still haven't figured out how to say his name. I really liked this. This was a sci-fi book where people can put their minds in someone else's body. Check out Shelf 3 video for more background on that, but it was good. Mostly what I did from Shelf 3 was a read a chapter tag and then got rid of a lot of books. So if you were interested in that premise, check out that video, because I went through a ton of BookBox books and just got rid of like 8 of them. Shelf 4 is what we're getting into now, and this was ebooks and audiobooks. So the first book I read was Ink and Bone by Rachel Caine. This is young adult dystopian fiction, which is my favorite. Highly recommend. Check out that video for more about that book. Next, I read Strange Tales, or what was it? Dead Leprechauns and Devil Cats, Strange Tales of the White Street Society by Grady Hendrix. This one was a short story collection by Grady Hendrix, who is one of my favorite authors. For more information about that short story collection, Shelf 4 video. And then I read Run, Rose, Run as an audiobook by Dolly Parton and James Patterson, and oh my goodness, it was so bad it was good. Plus Dolly Parton is one of the audiobook narrators. I don't know if I'd highly recommend it, but I do recommend it for a good laugh, even though it's supposed to be a thriller and not funny. But check out the Shelf 4 video for more information about that, as well as Recitatif by Toni Morrison, a short story about a black woman and a white woman, but you don't know which one is black and which one is white, and you're never gonna figure it out. Highly recommend that, because it says a whole lot about race, and it's like 19 pages long. And the final book that I read in the month of March was Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is a reread for me, because I read Black Sun originally the year it came out, so maybe 2 years ago, but I had it as an audiobook, and I didn't like it, and everybody talks about like how great it was, and it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like it, I just didn't think that anything memorable about it at all. So I was like, I need to reread this, because people love this book, and I don't remember liking or disliking this book, or thinking anything was particularly special from my experience of it. So a reread is in order, but I wanted to read it in a physical format, because obviously the audiobook did not do it for me. I did read it in a physical format. I borrowed it from my library. It is so much better reading it yourself than it is the audiobook. It's been so long since I listened to the audiobook that I can't tell you what was wrong with the audiobook. I just did not retain anything from the audiobook. Reading it physically, much better. I hate one of the characters, and she's like one of the main characters, the sun priestess. I can't remember her name right now, but she's one of the main 3 perspective characters, and I think she has the most perspective character. I don't like her. I thought she was immature and wasn't fitting, like her personality didn't fit into that high priestess role, and just her actions and the action of those around her were so freaking absurd that I did not like that storyline, and I think that might have had a lot to do with why I didn't like it. I do definitely recommend checking out Black Sun in physical format, and if you were interested in the sequel, which is Fevered Star, it comes out in April, and I do have an arc of it, which is why I was reading Black Sun. I do have an arc of it, so that will be in my arc video. My 2 DNF. First off, we'll talk about Everfair by Nisi Shaw. This was the lowest rated book on my TBR, and I didn't like this because it has 80 trillion perspective characters, and I can't be bothered to care about that many different perspectives of people. So go into this expecting historical fiction far more than steampunk fantasy, and 80 trillion perspective characters if you were interested in reading this. I talk about this a bit more in Shelf 1 video. And then the other one is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. I just didn't care. I 100% did not care about this character. So I just put it aside because why read something when I don't care about the character or his actions or anything like that? This one I talk about more in the Shelf 3 video. Alright, that is everything that I read this month, mostly redirected to other videos, so this is not hugely long and I'm talking forever, but thank you for being here. On Saturday, I will have a haul video if you are interested in seeing that. Down in the comments below, if you would like to leave me a comment, tell me how many books you read in March and what your favorite and or least favorite book was. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.